Hello there, Bookfighters. Today is Monday, January 31st, and I have just finished reading George R.R. Martin's A Clash of Kings. Now, I've just said that in a pretty blasé manner, but let me put that into perspective for you. A Clash of Kings is 70 chapters long, and roughly each chapter takes about 30 minutes to read, so if you do the math, that's about 35 hours of continuous reading. That's a day and a half of continuous reading. Yeah. So today I want to talk to you about the idea of paying off concepts. If you have a book and you're writing a novel and it's a story of fiction, for everything that is out of reality, I believe you've probably got to have, and I haven't got this ratio mathematically exact, but you've probably got to have 10 things based into reality for every one thing that isn't, if you want to sell your story as believable. The Harry Potter series is a great example of this, and it's something that does this really particularly well. If you look at the first chapter of Harry Potter, the only thing really amiss is the fact that glass disappears. Like, that's the only thing that is out of every day. Like, there are a couple of odd things here and there, but only one thing magical happens. Everything else is completely based in reality, completely could happen. So when the glass actually does disappear, it feels right, it feels good. Second chapter, there are some letters flying about, and yeah, it seems odd, but then there are so many things based in reality. There's so many truths about characters and relationships between stepbrothers and not real brothers, that the actual things that are odd just seem to be normal and based in reality. Every work of fiction needs to do this if it wants to be believable, apart from things that are in the fantasy genre. An example is Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, from the start, I mean, it doesn't need to do it. It says this is a fictional world, obviously not in those words, but it says these are hobbits, this is a wizard, there are dragons, there is this, there is that. It puts them all together for you, and it just says believe it, and that's what the fantasy genre does. That's what it has over any other genre, because it'd be too hard. There are so many concepts in a fantasy novel, like magic and trolls and all this different kind of weird and wonderful things, that to pay them off at the ratio that I'm talking about, the 10-to-1 kind of thing, again, not mathematically exact, it would just take far too long and far too many pages. Step in A Clash of Kings, which does exactly that. And that is one of the reasons that it has to be so long. Reading A Clash of Kings does not feel like reading a fantasy novel. It feels like George R.R. Martin has a window in his room where he writes his books to another world, and he just goes there, visits this world, comes back, and writes about it. It feels so based in reality. The characters are so alive that when I came to this after reading Game of Thrones last year, I felt like I was returning to places that I knew. I could smell them, I could see them, I could see how they changed. I remembered all the characters and their traits and their voices and how they acted. It's one of the most real experiences that you'll ever have. Definitely reading a fantasy novel. For me, I have a far easier time believing that this actually existed than I would reading any Nicholas Sparks novel. Just saying. Next week I'm reading The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, a Sherlock Holmes story. I've never read a Sherlock Holmes story before, but I went to the Oxfam bookshop and picked up this wonderful edition, hardback, and it's just like the pages really thick, and it's really well printed, and it's got pretty things on it, and it feels brand new. £2. £2. That's the equivalent of about $3. Ridiculous. Buying books from charity shops for the win. Next thing I want to talk to you about is an idea that I had, and I'm just going to throw it out there. I haven't asked anyone, but I'm just going to throw the idea out there. Now, in the last week or two, we've been watching those Writer Girls videos, some of them watch our videos, and I feel like there is so much collected awesome between the 10 of us that we need to figure out some way to harness it, and here's my idea. We write a novella. Here's my idea of how it'll work, and again, I'm just throwing it out there. All I want from you and the people who are watching those Writer Girls and the Bookfighters is just a yes or a no. I write chapter 1 of the novella, and that's it. I don't tell you what it's about, I just write chapter 1, and then I pass it on to someone else, and then they pass it on to someone else, and we don't tell each other. You might receive the story 4 chapters in, and you read those 4 chapters, and then you write the next chapter, and so everyone has a different experience with it. I'll write the first chapter, say 10 weeks into the future, I'll get a finished manuscript back, and there's the story, or you might have 4 chapters of the story. So that's, I probably haven't explained that very well, but that's how I see it working. I write a chapter, I send it to someone else, they write a chapter, and we keep going until we've got 9 chapters, and then we send it to the last person, and they write the ending. So That's my idea. I'm just throwing it out there. If you like it, let me know. And that's something that we'll do. I really want to do that. And then we've got like a cool novella of just collected awesome. Yeah, so let me know. Okay, Book Fights, that's my video for this week. Lauren, I'll see you tomorrow.